Cleveland's an interesting team. There are a lot of interesting teams. Cleveland last year made the playoffs. Great defense, probably the best defensive player in the league in Myles Garrett. Run game is usually legit. I think Kevin Stefanski is a good coach. They got Amari Cooper as a receiver. They added Jerry Jeudy, like David Njoku, a tight end. Like, they got some talent. But the big question, and one reason I'm leaving them out of the playoffs, is what about Deshaun Watson? To me, that is the only question in Cleveland. Rob, if he could get back to 85%.
Good luck.
Of what he was, then I think he could, they could maybe be dangerous. But he has been, he's just been downright bad. And I know they went 5-1 with him last year.
But he didn't play
well. It was darn near, it was basically in spite of him. And he was asked, Rob, whether he considers himself still to be one of the league's elite quarterbacks. And simple answer he gave, of course, no doubt. Rob, he turns 29 in a week and a half, next Saturday. I mean, he's not too old to get it back in theory, but what are your thoughts on him saying and thinking he's still elite or even being elite?
I mean, I'm not surprised.
He should think that.
I mean,
I hope he really thinks that.
I mean, what is he going to say? No, I'm chopped liver. You know what I mean, Chris? Like, you're not.
I'm washed.
Right, I'm washed. And you see this rag here? I'm washed. So we know that people are never going to say that. But no, he's not elite, and he hasn't been elite. And I think that sometimes you look at people, Chris, and you think they can go away from a game at this level for a couple years and come back and everything's good. Like, let me just pick up where I left off. Something is missing. Okay? It's very obvious. And I don't know what it is. If it's the rust factor that, you know what I mean, Chris, that he missed so much action, the confidence level, and then the injuries. So there's a trifecta there of things.
Well, remember, he sat out and look, I think most people feel like he is guilty of, the sexual assault.
It's just too much. It's just, Chris, it's just too much. I mean,
yeah, it's a lot of, I don't even remember how many women.
Rob G, is it 60 or something? Or like how many women that were involved in that thing? It wasn't like it was Chris. It was one or two, and it's like he said, she said. Like you could like put your head and say, well, maybe they just you never know. Okay,
right.
But when that many women come forward, and then all the social media evidence that they had that he had made contact with these women, he had flown them in. There's just overwhelming evidence.
And you know this, Rob. I know you've talked to guys. It's surprising how many guys are siding with him on that.
Right.
So I'm going to say whether you think he did it or not, but first of all of this he brought on himself.
Thank you. And
can I say this too, Chris? Yeah, go ahead.
Let me say this. I don't mean not to. He did, and even bigger, Chris, from this standpoint. If you knew you were involved in that, Chris, and you have all of the DMs and all that stuff is there. Had he settled with the first woman, Chris, there's no story, and the other women don't come out of the woodworks because they say, "Well, that happened to me too." Do you understand? That's how important.
Absolutely.
That's how important. If you knew that you were involved in that stuff, you could have easily. And I'm just saying, from a business standpoint and not ruining your life, not only did you lose like your reputation, Chris, all the sponsors that he had. This guy was a sponsor machine.
Yep.
And then all the money he had to pay for lawyers. He had like one of the biggest. What was that guy's name? Rusty.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Rusty Harden, Chris, who was a big time lawyer. You know how much money? So he lost endorsements and then had to pay a big time lawyer. All I'm saying is, he did bring this upon himself.
Well, first of all, with the actions. And secondly, remember, and it began, and look, there are people out there that think the Texans, once he shunned them, that they, got this stuff going. I don't know all that. But remember when he was like, I'm not playing for the Texans. And sat out an entire year, Rob.
Yep.
And then all this stuff started coming out. And Cleveland, desperate as they were, give him this huge deal. He's only played 12 games for the Browns in 2 years. So he is rusty, I guess. But the problem, Rob, look, I get it. And Houston was a bad organization, right?
Not that bad. They made the playoffs.
Right. He was making the playoffs with him. 3 straight years.
Chris, when he signed that deal, like that's the issue that I had. He had a chance. Right. He had a chance to get out of there if it was so bad. Like he didn't have to sign that deal. But he signed
a deal for like $160 million.
I get
roughly.
it.
And they made the playoffs 2 years. But you and I always say this, right? So you're right. First of all, you signed the deal, and I get you want the money, but still. You and I say this all the time. We said it about Joe Burrow, and we can say it about C.J. Stroud, who went to the same woe-begone organization that Deshaun.
And look what they did.
Yep. If you are that guy, and Deshaun was that guy,
yep,
you can turn a franchise around. Joe Burrow did it with the Browns.
Remember when everybody was telling Joe Burrow, don't go there? He should sit. Don't go to the Browns. We were like, he's from Ohio, and if you're going to be that guy, you go there and you be the guy.
You make him bet good, and that's what those two guys did. And Deshaun, quite frankly, Rob, was doing that with the Texans.
Right.
They were making the playoffs with him there. But now, here's what I wonder, Rob, and I don't know the answer. I wonder, because you said it, Deshaun Watson, he was not like a nondescript star where everybody was a star, but nobody knew about what he was like as a person. His character was thought to be unimpeachable.
Yep. A1.
Right? Like
A1.
Dabo Sweeney said he was Michael Jordan.
Yep.
I mean, he was viewed as, a religious guy and like community service and all that. Like, he had a pristine reputation.
100%.
And I wonder, Rob, and again, I don't know if this is the truth, but I just wonder, does the collapse of his public persona, did that rock him so much mentally that he just can't recover? Because Rob, everywhere you go, and we there's a few guys out there, like we said, that are with him. But when you walk into a room, when you walk into a press conference, when you walk into a restaurant, people are looking at you, I'm just going to keep it real, like you're perverted. And that, I wonder, has that messed up his psyche so much that he just can't play at the level that he used to?
And I do want to remind people, Chris, back in 2020 with the Texans, Watson led the NFL in passing, Chris, 4,823 yards, and was named to the Pro Bowl for the third time in 4 years. That's where he was, pinnacle, right?
Yep.
Since joining the Browns, Watson's 41.9 quarter QBR, Chris, 6th lowest in the NFL. That's where he is. That was 2020, and now 6th lowest QBR in the NFL. And you might be on to something, because he did take a public hit on his, what's the right?
His image.
Yeah, his image.
Character.
Yeah, yep. I mean, that's a blow, and people look at you differently because of what people thought you were, Chris. It's not like they didn't know or you weren't attached to anything.
Right.
You were attached to goodness.
If you were Dennis Rodman, it would have been
okay, all right. Or, then they pulled the curtains back.
Right.
You know what I mean? Okay, so I'm not shocked by it, but Deshaun Watson, I think people were shocked.
Yeah, and I look, if that is the case, and he should have, it seems like he should have been getting therapy anyway. And Rob, I would imagine he's had some therapy. I think he's certainly talked about talking to counselors. I don't know if it was more in relation to, just his legal issues or whatever. But, you would think he'd try to talk to somebody to get over. Whether it's what I described, Rob, there seems to be some type of mental block there, though. Because you're talking about a guy, he's only he's not even 29 yet.
Right.
He should be able to get it back at least physically. And so if it's a mental issue, go talk to some people.
Right. And especially now, it's a couple years now. It's not like we got it the first time. He was still suspended, Chris. He missed time, and trying to get acclimated. So you kind of gave him a pass on that. Last year had a full offseason, right? And then training camp. So everybody thought, okay, like he should be acclimated now. And that didn't happen. But I still, to this day, I just wonder, does he sit up looking at the ceiling, at night saying, why didn't I pay that $100,000 or whatever it was? Seriously. Like that was one of those tactical errors that cost him. I just cannot get over it. And
well, Rob, we've covered athletes for decades. And you almost can't blame them sometimes. You can think you're Teflon.
Yep.
I mean, you got all the money in the world. Everybody fawns over you. Everybody does whatever you want them to do. Remember, it came out that the Texans were, he was getting these hotel rooms for his massages, and the Texans were, involved in that. People are doing whatever you want them to do. And Rob, look, for all the women that came out, again, speculation. My guess is that some of the women he hit on, not necessarily the ones that came out and accused him, but some of them, he got what he wanted. Or he wouldn't have kept doing it. Right. I don't think.
No, right. And it wasn't we're not talking about 2 or 3 women. We're talking about a ton.
So you start thinking you can get man, this won't stick. I'm Deshaun Watson.
Right.
There's no way.
But boy, did they underestimate. When you have to go shell out the money he shelled out for the Chris, when you got to fight these, a lot of people settle out of court because of what the expense is. Like it's not that you think you couldn't win a case, or maybe it's not as bad as they make it out to be, but what it'll cost you isn't worth it.
Right. Now you're right. Had he paid it,
Because didn't it happen to Bill Cosby too? Wasn't it like there was one person and
well, a lot. I think by the end it was like
60.
Was it 60 women with Bill Cosby?
Something like that.
There was a lot that ended up coming out.
Well, but right, and then remember that the judge unsealed one of those things where he paid off a woman and admitted that he had drugged her or something. You remember that? Like it was unsealed. It was supposed to be sealed, and it became unsealed. Wow, crazy.